This is the April CPS meeting. Gonna kind of go over the state of the CPS, as well as do some sort of brief analyses on these projects, kind of the same way that we did it the last time. And then mostly, I think today, discuss the contract that's in review by the Venture 23 team to see whether we should keep the current terms as laid out or if we should change it to something else. And then also if we need to add anything on to the contract, specifically what I would want to add on would be related to governance models, which is a thing that a bunch of people have brought up as potentially important. So let me... This is going to be... I'll fill out the rest of the stuff later, but we'll start with the discussion stuff. So good to get at least one outside opinion on this, and then Arosh and John, feel free to chime in as well. So CPS, we've kind of zoned in on what are the things that are the most necessary for the next development cycle. That is one, payout of funds based off of delivery of milestones. Two, variables for CPS operation that are tunable by governance. And three, front-end upgrades. Also not mentioned here is general CPS maintenance for like bugs and issues. The most important ones are payout based on delivery of milestones and variables that are tunable by governance. And so let me get up the current model of the contract.
Have you also considered an option to propose for increase of the funding between the terms?
You mean like how much inflation goes into the pool?
No, I meant more when you start the project, you create a proposal, you have some estimation, and then after, like, I don't know, have the bet, you figure out, for example, that the cost is going to be higher. There's some additional complexity or something that you did not account for, and you want to increase the request for funding, and as far as I'm aware right now, this feature is not implemented, but it seems like a thing that should be there.
Okay, so just notes so far. Discuss adding a feature for budget amendments. Yeah, I mean, I had originally proposed that back when I created the template for progress reporting. There would be a section for amendments to the budget. It's not in the feature set currently. My kind of first take opinion on it is it's a good idea, but I would like to ideally see the milestone-based payouts implemented first to understand a little bit more about like how does that change the social dynamics of the CPS. Reason being is because I think having budget amendments is potentially a dangerous thing to do. Like if you just look at the CPS dashboard currently, right? There's this about the Tezos integration. And if you look at the final progress report, which is currently being voted on, which looks like it'll probably be approved, although not fully sure. You could see, like, so we're at the final milestone. We haven't completed all of the deliverables. You know, we're working on it. But, like, this is the end of our funding period, so that's it. So given the, like, current state where it's just month-based delivery, this will likely go through. And then likely what we'll end up with is a product that's not completed, but is finished being funded.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the one that we rejected in this, for exactly the reason you are describing. So we are just respecting the newly established kind of community agreement that we have figured out that should improve the situation and kind of eliminate or at least reduce those cases to the minimal possible. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think that that's kind of what we're going for. But I do want to see how does the dynamic of the like approval process work among all of the voters when the structure that is actually built into the CPS system includes milestone-based delivery. So if we see that like not much has changed, then, you know, like I'm not really sure at this point, but my first guess would be that we would probably want to look more at that issue as to like why has this not changed people's voting tendencies, rather than taking on the idea that like, okay, now you can also just amend your budget and continue to like milk the CPS, like further when you're not delivering. And then additionally, currently all of the funds are in the CPS treasury prior to like the approval of the initial proposal, or like when something gets approved and becomes an active proposal that's being delivered upon, all of the funds are already available in the treasury. And so now including a section that for budget amendments makes that kind of like a bit more complicated for the development team to, you know, because now they're always sort of thinking like, well, should I amend my budget? And what if I don't get the budget amendment? Do I just stop developing? And, you know?
Yeah, true. It's kind of double-edged sword, and you know, yeah, on one side you expect the best behavior, but can also get the worst one out of it. So it's more or less just leveraging to highlight the best of both and kind of try to minimize the worst case kind of cases.
Right. So anyway, I think it needs a little more thought. I think it's a good idea though, but just need to figure out like how do we structure the dynamics of this. So just to specify on the grants based on milestone payout, The idea is to pay out a percentage upfront, like prior to any delivery. Reason being is that there's now like a larger contingency that teams don't get any of the funding paid out, and they just waste a lot of their time working. Typical structures for like a milestone-based payout contract include somewhere between 10 and 50% usually of payment up front. I've got like a little bit more details further on in the document about how much I'm planning for this. And then also about the submission system, the payout system will be structured, as far as I've scoped it out so far, to allow submission of progress reports during the first 2 weeks of the month, which is pretty much the same or very similar to the existing one. And then all teams are required to submit a progress report regardless of whether any milestones were accomplished or not, with a max of 1 report per month. So you could only have like your milestones grouped in monthly or like multiple month, but not more than 1 per month payout. That's because of the voting system mostly. It's like hard to vote multiple times per month. There's a system in place to denote which milestones were accomplished. So that's just the team reporting like we did this, checkbox, we have 4 more to go. And then a system for validators to vote on the validity of the progress report, which is similar to the existing voting system. The sort of one small step would be using the current progress report structure. Because this is now based off of the delivery of milestones and not based off of like a semantic idea of whether the team is making progress or not, using the current progress report format, which you can see here, you should be able to see exactly what was the commit or event that validates your milestone to be delivered upon. And then you can see like example progress reports for some of the other things that are being tracked, in this case by the Icon Foundation. And for instance, this is the pseudo block team. They have like, this is everything that we've done, and these are the associated pull requests for them. So that's kind of the idea, is to track the progress based off of the progress report, which now you can sort of validate whether or not something happened, instead of just having this semantic idea of whether progress was made, regardless of whether like those denotations of like pull requests actually refer to progress. And then the final part is the system to disperse funds if the milestones were accomplished, which is basically the same thing here. There may be a good idea to add in a like check I've validated this proof from the side of the voters. That's something I still need to discuss with the Venture 23 team. So that's kind of the changes to the payout system. I will put that in a message in the notes. Any comments on that? Okay, if not, I'm gonna move on. Alright, so the next thing is the variables tunable by governance, and go over that based off of the current spec of the contract as well. One of the things I mentioned before is that a percentage of the payout is upfront, which is typical for a milestone-based contract. This is going to be one of the variables tunable by governance vote, which, because the CPS system is, I guess, managed by the ICON network, and then, given voting rights to the ICON delegates, this is a network proposal that would be required in order to change these numbers. So the upfront payment amount, the way I'm designing it, is initialized at 10% upfront payment, and cannot go greater than 20% upfront payment. And I've seen some references that say upfront payment can be up to 50%, given the precedent of this community, which is needs a little more pushing in order to deliver. I think in part based off of there's a lot of free reign over what is valid as a contribution to the network, instead of we need you to build us a roof. The roof's not there, it's very clear whether you've delivered, but if you made a tool and it doesn't work, does that really count? That's kind of unclear. So I'm sort of putting the limit at 20%, but between 0 and 20%, that's tunable by governance vote. And then the other variable that's planned to be tunable by governance is the bond percentage for sponsors. So bond percentage is to incentivize the sponsors to follow up with teams on the progress and delivery of projects in the CPS. Currently, the bond percentage.
What about the case? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, you're good.
What about the case where the bonder is the team itself?
So they still have to, get a penalty if they're not delivering. What would you suggest? Would you say you should not be able to bond? You should not be able to self-sponsor, basically?
Essentially, if you give upfront 10% and then they have to bond 10%, you end up more or less on 0 from the start. And, there's no one to push behind, but it can be good and bad on both sides, because sometimes it's hard to convince someone, and you have the money, you have the resources, the plan, and you have to then search for someone, which may be odd, but yeah, it's worth just considering this case.
Right.
I would say it's not really possible to stop people from supplying their own sponsor bond, though, or sponsoring their own project. Well, I guess sponsoring your own project. Yeah, that also isn't possible to stop, really.
So, from the perspective of, if you are given a delegate spot and you're a voter in the CPS, to say also we are the development team, are you saying that is impossible to stop?
It is, yeah, because I would just say I am the delegate, Lydia Labs, and the development team is balanced.
And you're saying that would be considered valid even if the community members know that that's technically the same team?
Yeah. Even if they know it's technically the same team, then of course it's tough. But does everybody know all the subsidiaries of every possible team? I don't think so.
Yeah,
there's a lot of situations that wouldn't be enforceable, and it's not really worth considering.
Yeah, I see the point. What's up, Robbie?
Yeah, I think in general, as it was fine. But I'm just kind of highlighting that if there's an upfront of 10%, then this bond to be penalized kind of.
Yeah, it's a wash. I do agree with that. The bond should be higher than the upfront payment, ideally.
Yeah, exactly. So you end up, on 0, basically.
Right. So, let me just think for a second. I would say, like, part of my motivation here is to like promote better social dynamics in addition to like hard coded dynamics, so that I think it may be worth considering, not necessarily as like something to be contracted out for hard coded development, but to like, communicate to the community that while you are allowed to be a self-sponsor, it's not encouraged. If like after, because I don't fully know why that would be discouraged, other than what you just said about the bond and the upfront payment, Robbie. But if it does seem like a good idea, I would be open to promoting that as like a principle. So just a note on that. And the second bit is I would also be open to, for this bond percentage, initializing it at 15% and then stating that it cannot go less than 12%, because of the issue with self-sponsoring and getting an upfront payment. Basically, if you're going to self-sponsor, you are committing and then cannot go greater than 20 and cannot be greater than the bond percentage.
I do think they could be equal, because just trying to think about how you could take advantage of that, there's really no way. So if you put down $10,000 with your bond and you receive $10,000 with an upfront payment and never do any work, then it's a wash for everybody, and you've just wasted your own time, really. So I think it could be greater than or sorry, yeah, it could be equal.
It's currently allowed to be equal, what I just wrote.
Yeah. Okay.
But initializing it at a greater amount is, I would say, probably a good idea, just because now there's not the full penalty, obviously, if you literally did just decide to, like, not do any work. But you get penalized still 5% here. So that's this development about variables determined by governance votes, which are tunable variables. If you have suggestions for other variables related to the contract that should be tunable, or comments on these, I'll again post these notes in the UG sustainability chat, but feel free to point them out right now as well. All right. Moving on. So the last point, just this is more informational than like a discussion, is also scheduled for this contract, which again is under discussion currently, is front end updates. The one thing is to add contact information to the proposal template, and this helps with following up with teams to make sure that they are following through on their developments and keeping up with them if they need assistance on something, or connecting them to other teams in the ecosystem. To make the app more responsive on mobile is another point. This was pointed out maybe like a month or so ago, that it doesn't look good on mobile, and then I confirmed that it doesn't look very good. And then I think, Scott, you pointed this one out, is the front end does not refresh after claiming. So it should do so in order to clearly show the state of the sponsor bond.
Yeah, I mean, just after any transaction, it just update the state of the front end.
Yep. All right, so that's the contract currently. A couple of things to discuss about what could be added either later on onto this contract or to a separate contract, or it's like a future development rather. So the first one is the one that requires the most discussion, probably, is committee-based versus validator-based decision-making. Noting that this would not be implemented immediately, but once we come up with like a good enough plan, then or sufficiently discussed, then we can make an implementation plan. And the key question is, should CPS governance be committee-based instead of validator-based, which they're not mutually exclusive, basically. Like, the committee can just be the same validators, but committee-based also allows for the possibility that it's people other than the existing validators. So, Scott, TJ, Robbie, do you have any thoughts on that, including like what would be a committee structure, and do you know of people that would be a good fit for the committee?
Yeah, I'll just start off there. I think that adding, I'd be open to two structures. One would be full committee and one would be partial committee. Full committee would just completely remove the existing validator set as voters. And partial, I think we could give the committee veto power, have them be like a required, have them, require their support for anything to get through. But each team could veto each other, right? Validators could veto committee and vice versa. That could be like a happy medium structure. And in terms of people that would be a good fit, I definitely think there should be some people from Icon and anyone that has shown passion and commitment to the CPS right now, like from the existing validator set, I think would be a good fit. Like people on this call, perhaps. And yeah, maybe a few from Icon and anyone else who expresses like strong interest. I'm thinking maybe like a 7-person committee, perhaps. Something no greater than that, maybe 5 or 7. And I'll just stop there. I mean, we could go into a lot of detail about like adjusting the committee. There could be a network proposal to do that. Things of that
This is
nature.
going to be the start of the discussion. So
Yeah.
I'm going to send out the notes and then we'll discuss it. Maybe it'll be via text over the next month or so. And then that should, at the end of that, have like a clearer system in place where we kind of understand the pros and cons.
Okay. I think nuances need to be worked out, but either a 5 or 7-person committee that has veto power over validators that want to participate, and vice versa would be my suggestion.
So, okay, veto power over validators.
Yes, Scott, from like a vice versa perspective, does that mean that the committee will be voting on proposals as well as validators?
It would be main. Yeah, I don't know. I'm open to either. My original thought would be that it would be the committee voting, and if validators wanted to veto, they could. So maybe it would be the other way around from what I said. I would be even open. I just think the simpler route is to go full committee, maybe with a 7-person committee. But yeah, I don't have too strong of an opinion, so I just wanted to throw them both out there.
Okay.
I don't think, I guess the way I was thinking about it was similar to the partial committee that you just said, where the committee is the one that is voting, but is essentially held in check by validators. But, as it's just like a cost, like a time cost or a resource cost for validators themselves. This basically only entails them needing to make sure, like, keep the committee in check rather than have to do like full due diligence.
I think that's probably a good happy medium. I would support that. And validators could remove a signing key from the committee set. So that would be like a network proposal to remove a key from the committee set. But in terms of voting on, each proposal on a monthly basis, that would be just the committee.
Okay. So Robbie, what do you think?
Yeah. So it's like in decentralized space, it's hard to kind of justify those ideas. I think they're great if they're correct people and they have the good intentions in there, but that's the issue in its origin, because how you know for sure that someone is doing good and how you can prevent from going into bad behavior. How are you going to decentralize control over this part? That's
Right.
kind of the tricky part, because if you keep the same system as we have right now in the voting through the validators, you end up with the same people, just more concentrated in one group. So that's an issue as well. So that's my
Right. I
concern.
think but
Yeah.
yeah, so as you pointed out, the existing system has the same problem, except it's like random people instead of people like from the Icon Foundation and other like incentivized parties that are incentivized to make good decisions and participate actively, unlike just kind of somebody who knows how to run a validator.
Another thing I'd throw in there is it possible that having a system where the committee votes and then validators can veto it, could that then breed in a sense of complacency with the validators, where maybe they would think, okay, I can leave
Yeah,
this
they
up to
don't
the
check.
committee,
Yeah,
and then kind of their involvement would kind of slowly phase out over time, and they'd just get fatigued of the system.
yeah, that was my concern with having both people involved. I think giving them the power is fine. Like it would kind of prevent catastrophic situations like the committee voting to drain the fund for their own pockets and disappear. Then
Yeah.
I think that would get validators' attention. There could be a call to action, but they don't necessarily need to be as involved in the day to day.
Right. So just taking some notes, if there's a partial committee system in place, there's possible issues related to validator complacency
Yep.
with respect to involvement. There's also the issue on the other side of the committee acting
Maliciously.
maliciously.
Yeah, I think we have to just generally keep away from the kind of government structure, because committees and boards and things like that get to do exactly the same behavior in the end as the government. And the main idea was to just do a reverse and go the other way, to decentralize the whole thing as much as possible. But yeah, here the situation is a bit difficult because you want to match the results with the funding, and you have to ensure it. And the majority of the validators can just play around that field if they go together in some ideas.
Here's this is just an idea, like a suggestion. It's not necessarily something that I favor, but given your sort of line of thought, Robbie, what's the opinion here on, like, if you're just a regular member of the Icon community and you can like get KYC approved somehow, then you're like valid as a registrant to vote for the CPS.
Yeah, I personally don't favor those types of things because, for funding ecosystem development, you don't just need people and you don't just need decentralization. You need qualified people and qualified decision makers that have experience in the space, experience in software development. Yeah, I think if you want to make the wrong decision, you ask everyone. That's in the Vol quote that I'll repeat over and over again in these meetings. If we want to consistently make average decisions, we can get everybody's opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I
We
have heard
need
you
to
say
have
that before.
people who have
Sorry,
experience.
what's up? Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Robbie, what is your thought on the idea?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's always the case. You want the best people to lead, right? You know, the smartest, the fastest, whatever. So it's always this idea, but the problem is that you have to have some kind of election model around it in either way. And if you do that, you get basically democracy. So you get an average, and you know you start where you began. So it's just a circle. So I think structure we have now, it's much better than anything in the real world where you have, you know, democracy and everyone can say anything in any way, and it's not relevant that he's qualified for it. So I think
Right.
CPS is much more efficient in its form already. So we just have to do small improvements to, you know, just improve it overall.
Yeah, maybe
So
just giving a committee veto power, and that'll keep them more like if the committee is likely to stay more engaged than a validator set, in my view. So if it was validators working as is currently, but a committee that has oversight over delivery of projects and things that can veto progress reports and veto approved proposals that they feel don't make sense, I think I would be open to that, like an expert committee with veto power as opposed to the other way around.
Okay.
But with that said, I do have a 2:00 call and need to jump, unfortunately. But I think you guys generally understand my position.
Gotcha. All right.
Thanks
Cool.
for the time.
Thanks, man.
Take it easy, guys.
Cheers, y'all. Or cheers, Scott.
Yeah, I think that way
Um,
round does sound
Sorry.
like the best way to maintain everyone's focus on what's happening.
Okay, so I'm gonna
And
just put. What's up?
and how would the committee be appointed? Like how is it going to be the foundation that picks out?
I think it would be probably the most logical is initially appointed by the foundation and then vetoed and reappointed by the validators.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, all right, so that's the last note I'm going to take on that for this meeting, and then we'll keep discussing. So just to recap, the loose conclusion is that having a committee that can veto the validators may be a good idea. Moving on is two more things we discussed last time was CPS funded project code ownership and accountability. So with respect to ownership, that would mean like if you develop something, is it owned fully or at least like licensed, you know, partially by CPS system, which would be like the icon-community organization. The loose consensus on that was code ownership should probably stay autonomous, like by the development group. And then a second point on accountability. This is the icon community org, by the way. And about accountability, we all agree there should be more accountability among teams. One of the ways that could be pursued is by having better like person-to-person contact with the development teams to make sure that like they're staying on schedule, and you know that could be sort of the liaison between the development teams and the CPS groups. One of the things that you see happen a lot with the CPS developments is that the teams can basically say whatever they want in the progress reports, like, hey, so I actually didn't do it, sorry, it doesn't matter. And then, you know, a lot of times that'll get pushed through with an approval because the people that are voting, at least from my perspective, don't fully understand that like this is something that should not be approved, like that this actually didn't get delivered on. You know, somebody just stole the money here. So having a person that communicates with the team is one way that we can increase accountability. Again, with this milestone-based delivery, and then a section in the progress report for validating progress is another way that increases accountability for the development teams. And in addition to this committee idea, I would probably say that there should be like a liaison system in place, where there's like somebody that's responsible for the project that maybe like has to be a collaboration between kind of this CPS oversight committee as well as the sponsor of the project. So that's on the point of accountability for CPS funded projects. Does anybody have any other notes other than what I just said?
Yeah, I think having the sponsor of the project also work as a kind of caseworker to keep driving success with it is a good idea. I guess back to the point earlier on people providing their own bond, that's something to bear in mind, that if someone's being their own caseworker, they may be supplying to them.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that this could be potentially a partnership between the hypothetical oversight committee, the project sponsor, delegate, and the with Iconis DAO. And I would also say that potentially it could be funded by the CPS. So like having a proposal, you know, maybe that gets renewed every 6 months or whatever, that's like gives enough funding for caseworkers. Like a small amount is a potential thing to look into.
Yeah, and then hypothetically, if it isn't used, then a milestone isn't posted, so no payment's given.
Yeah. I mean, you got to make sure that the caseworkers are actually doing the right thing, but that's an idea to think about.
Yeah, I think I would just add that the problem I saw right now in approving the proposals and then the corresponding progress report was that when you go into the progress report decision making view on the front end, you don't see the connection between the milestone and what has been done and if the milestone is to be approved. So you kind of have to decide on timely manner. So how I do it right now is if it's the last report, and then I make sure that you know the whole thing is built and it's pushed out to the production, and you know that's the only way to do it at the end. But in between, you know, there's no connection in the view you're seeing, so you have to read through, go back to proposal, and then go back, and you know just switch back and forth. So the milestones should improve that, I think, quite.
Okay. Yeah. I think that there's more possible improvements to make around the front end, like you're saying, related to potentially demoing products, which is like, you know, a validator or whoever can vote to say like this project demo that I've looked at is actually fulfilling the like deliverable for the project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the front end for proposals should definitely have an input separate to the description where you put in for each milestone what you're gonna do and how you're going to what's going to be the quality assurance that can be done on this milestone when it's being in the
Yeah.
voting part, so you have an easier time to see, okay, that should be done, let's click how it looks, okay, it's working, seems nice, approve, go next, so
Yeah.
that's what I would like to see soon.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let me make a note of that in the contract idea as well. All right. So that's that. Yeah, I also think that having a caseworker is useful to understand the state of the project, so that like the caseworker can give an account, like, this was fulfilled in this way or whatever. All right. That is kind of all I have on the accountability stuff. So I'm going to move on. This revenue return idea, this is probably not really worthy of a discussion at this point. But the basic idea is, if there was a larger funding pool or a venture arm of the CPS, should some of the projects or revenue generating projects be returned to the CPS? And the general idea would be, if there were KYC agreements for funding, then you could validate it and potentially, return an amount of revenue. So just a note, I'm going to keep it on the agenda for the probably coming months as well, just to keep it brewing in case it does seem like a good idea. We've thought about it a little bit. Does anyone have any comments on that? All right, cool. So that's that. I'm going to jump to the last section of this, which I'm going to try to go through this really quickly. This is Agora versus GangstaBet in terms of were these good projects? And we'll go through the criteria. These are both solid projects, actually, in my opinion. Where are the links? Here's one. So this is the same as we did that prior time. This is a comparative analysis on, was this project worth it to be funded by the CPS, and which one was more worth it. Agora is for deploying DAOs. You can see it working here. It's called DAOs.stakey.io, or Icon DAOs. And this is connected to, I think, most of the major DAOs in the ecosystem. So for instance, if you want to look at the Craft one, this is the Craft Network DAO that was deployed using Agora, which you can see the Agora system here. Includes a front end, and then includes smart contracts deployable on the Icon blockchain. And this presumably will be one of the interoperable systems, as well as Agora, that's able to function across blockchains. So that's the Agora project. And then the GangstaBet project is NFTs and gaming and some amount of play to earn based stuff. It's quite popular in Craft and just generally within the Icon ecosystem. The team has delivered on it, in multiple different phases. and people in the community generally recognize the GangstaBet brand. So given that as kind of the compass, the question is about one, impact on the ecosystem. This is a number 1 through 5 for Agora, and then for GangstaBet. And does anybody have like a number that might be good for Agora, 1 through 5?
See, I feel like a lot of the impact that Agora could have is yet to come. So I'd go with 4 on this one, because like a lot of the big brands in the space have started using it and taking it up, which, you know, is great for a start. But yeah, I look forward to maybe when the gaming space and things take off and we see more and more people on the uptake of Agora, maybe using it as voting platforms and things like that for their groups.
Cool. All right. I agree.
True. I agree
What's
as
up?
well, because
Alright.
we have also considered it in our projects. So I think we have now 2 projects on the line where we want to use it. So it's already in plan, and I think, like you said, in future the adoption will grow with each new coming on the chain.
Awesome. All right. So that's 4. GangstaBet. Does anyone have a comment on that? Impact.
With the impact, is it meant more like community or just ecosystem from the technical perspectives? I'm not sure how are we
Like, how
looking.
important is this project? In a broad sense, not like technically. I would say like innovation is probably more about technicality.
Okay, yeah, I think I would definitely give it between 4 and 5, because from what I've observed, it's quite widespread. So
I'd
yeah,
agree with that.
it should be a top.
Yeah, it's kind of the original big NFT collection for Icon, and they're still building, and everyone's aware of them. Also, like usually the top trading on Craft, despite wash trading being rife, you know, they're always up there.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a 5. Reason being, I agree, and I think it's more impactful than Agora. All right, feasibility. So feasibility is with respect to like when given the option to vote yes or no on development of this project, how much do you feel like this project is like able to be actually created versus be sort of stuck in like development hell? First one is Agora. Do you think that this project is feasible? Like it's been delivered, right? So
Yeah,
that's your
I know
first
that
one.
otherwise, from first-hand chats with the Stakey team, I know they're all over it, and they're always very able and willing to get on board and build out extra features and support for it. So I would rate it highly. I'd be open to give it a 5.
Alright, I'm giving it a 5. Gangsta Bet. Same question.
From me again, I'd say that the
You
team
can answer
behind
all of them. I don't care, man. Just
the team
keep going.
behind them seem pretty capable. They're dealing with a lot of different plans at once, which makes me a bit worried sometimes. But you know they always seem to pull them through. So 4 or 5. Does anyone have any other thoughts on it?
I'm gonna give it a 5.
Yeah, I agree with the 5.
Alright. Cost. Let's go back to the proposals. First, Agora. The proposed cost was 24,000 BNUSD. And then let's say this is the final progress report. We've released a beta version, so end of funding, 24K. Is that too much? Is that not enough? Is
I
that the right
think
amount?
it was well spent money, to be short, for sure.
All right, we'll go
Stuck
5.
to the budget. So
All right, Gangsta Bet, 30.5K. That's ICX. So that's ICX. So that's like 10K, and that's the first part of the Gangsta Bet. They've got like 4 proposals in total or something.
That was actually back when ICX was probably like $1 or $2. So just for context, I think it's a bit higher than the 10K, probably more around $50,000.
Okay, so it's 50K. Let's call it.
Yeah, and you also have to include all the consequential proposals, right?
You can, yeah, if it helps your consideration. So let's say 50K, and then there's more proposals as well. I would say, in a sense, think mostly if this came up as a proposal without knowing about future plans, because I don't believe the future plans are fully described. Would you fund it or not? So this is for score development, back-end development, artistry, design work, marketing, and then having like admins and stuff.
Yeah,
And then they end up with this collection.
maybe
What's up?
something like a 3, just for the fact that, in my opinion, like it was obviously impactful, but for a project like an NFT project, when you're also raising money from like a primary sale, it becomes a bit like 50K just to bootstrap a project is a bit spendy in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for the cost of like 2 agoras.
Yeah, I think if you reference to OMM and Balance, where there is no proposal and they've created this successful, sustainable income, yeah, I think for costs, I would put GBet a bit lower for sure. You know, if OMM and Balance are 5, yeah, it's probably about 3, I would say also.
Okay, cool. So we'll go with 3. Time frame. So these were, I believe, both fully delivered, or at least Agora was beta delivered. This one, yeah, undergoing testing. So yeah, they're both kind of like beta delivery stage at the end of this. This was 3 months for Gangsta Bet, and the Agora was 3 months as well. So 3 months for the Agora DAO product. Does that seem worth it?
Yeah, I think it's fair given the work they did.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll go with 5 then.
Yep, sounds like I think 3 months is pretty much the gold standard as the CPS goes usually.
And then Gangsta Bet, what do you think? 3 months, they got contracts in place, they got integration into the marketplace, they got their artistry, and then whatever.
Yeah, I think a
Yeah,
quarter
I
is a
think
good
it's
time
fine.
to hit those milestones.
Yeah? Are we
Yeah,
going 4 or 5?
I'd go for 5. I don't see purpose to judge there if they've hit.
Okay. 5. Alright, next, innovation. So you could think of it in 2 ways. Innovation with respect to the overall blockchain landscape, like how much did this sort of, keep up with cutting edge, and then how much was it innovating specifically for the Icon ecosystem.
Yeah, specific icon, then yeah, but with the potential it has and uniqueness of the product for icon, yeah, that would rate quite high.
For Agora, what would you say as a number, Arush?
5.
Alright. Unless anyone has any counter argument, I'm going to keep 5.
Agora is kind of based off of protocols within like Ethereum itself, though, right?
Yeah, it's based off
Yeah.
of Snapshot.
But yeah, just for in terms of icon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure and if they reference like any of the governance from Balanced or Ohm necessarily. I'm assuming not, but yeah, in terms of like icon specific, I could say yeah 4 or 5, but industry wide, it's probably more of like a 3 since it's based off of pretty standardized protocols in Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
All right.
agreed.
So,
Like,
what do you think? I'm gonna go with 4.
Yeah, should we average at 4 to give it
Yeah,
kind of
meeting
like
in between.
a mixture of the two?
Oh
All right.
yeah.
Last number. Gangsta Bet innovation.
If
yeah,
we're again
what do
averaging,
you
I'd
think?
probably say 3. Because if we say
Yeah.
in Icon, I'd probably say a 4 because they were one of the early NFT projects, but they were kind of building on the NFT scene at the time.
Mhm.
And if we're looking at what was happening in the broader ecosystem or the broader Web3 space, I'd say probably a 2. So 3 sounds good for me.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's fair.
All right. So that's the numbers. Just do a quick. That's 20, 45, 70, 85, 93. So that's 25, 50, 65, 80, 86. All right. So I want to emphasize again that I chose good projects on purpose. Because this is the second time we've done this. And what we see is that Agora is more valuable versus GangstaBet. The total possible score is 100. Heuristically, which is a rule of thumb, anything over 65 is valuable. So we see that they're both valuable heuristically to be like valid for funding. So anyway, point of these analyses again is to understand what is added to our ecosystem and do we think it was a good way to spend money. Based off of what we just discussed here, the general consensus is that Agora would be a better thing to fund versus GangstaBet if given the choice for like an active CPS vote. However, and then again, you can do the same analysis with open votes, and that's one of the goals of doing this is eventually to start doing analyses on the open projects. But you can also see again that they both were worth funding. So 86 is quite a bit higher than 65. And then, same with Agora, 93. So that's the end of the meeting. I'll publish that stuff as well as the notes after this. And thanks, guys, for hanging out and discussing. I feel like we got some good stuff done.